The topic of mental health can be very uncomfortable, but today we're going to dive right into it and understand it a little bit more, how it affects your salon, how to support your team through it. Hi, I'm Kayla Swanson, and I'm your host of the Profitable Salon podcast. And hanging out with me today is Stephanie Russell. Hello, Stephanie. How are
Hi,
you?
Kayla. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited about our topic because I think mental health is a very uncomfortable topic and a lot of people don't know how to navigate it. And there's like so many different ways to look at it. There's so many different ways that it affects us. And so Stephanie Russell is a global Redken facilitator as well as a psychological safety coach. And so I'm really excited to have her on today and talk with you guys about mental health in the salon and what she's been doing and just dive into that. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit more about you and kind of where you're at and with it.
Well, thank you. Where I'm at with it, it's so funny because my brain goes in so many different directions because right now I have so many interests, but all under this umbrella. But mainly what I'm doing at this moment is supporting salons to help them to create a more psychologically safe environment. Even the word psychological safety, it's so big and long, but it's so beautiful. And what it means, to make it simple, is I help salon owners and salons to reduce mental harm and to promote well-being within themselves, within, like, for the leaders, within team members, within themselves, and then within the team themselves, with each other and with guests. Like, that's
I
essentially what
love
it
that.
is.
Yeah, and I love what you added there too, like with guests too, 'cause I think that's an important part of it. I mean, in the salon, you see so many people. I mean, your customer service is like you are interacting with so many different people throughout the day, throughout the week, and just like your relationships with your owner to stylist, your stylist to stylist, your service provider to your guests. Like you're spending a lot of time with people, and I think
Mm.
it's so important. I think sometimes people don't realize the impact that that has on our brain, and how if we don't have the tools to be able to navigate those kinds of things, a lot of like there can be a lot of effects of that. So Stephanie, tell me a little bit like what made you start to get into this? Like what problem did you see there? Like I got to solve this problem and where did this originate?
Well, Kayla, it started with me. I
Mm.
was in many psychologically unsafe relationships, including a psychologically unsafe workplace. And it's really funny because for myself, I recognized that, but I didn't have words for it, right? So I moved and I moved into another salon, and then I became a psychologically unsafe leader.
Hmm.
And now that I know what all that looks like, because I didn't have words for it before, and I think that that's the biggest, I guess that's the biggest thing I educate people on, is to have language around this stuff, because we all know it. Like, there's nothing that I share with anybody, I don't think, that they don't really know at their core. But the language behind it, the putting words to it, creates a world and puts everything together. And so when I started to learn this information, knowing again that I was in environments that I didn't feel right. That's the best way to say it. I didn't feel right. I didn't know it was unsafe.
Hmm.
I just never felt comfortable. And so then to get into this and then to look back and see, oh, I wasn't a very safe leader myself. I saw the need for it in general. And it's not that you're either safe or you're unsafe, because the truth is, most times it's when, it's not if, right? It's
Yeah.
when we're safe, when
Hmm.
we are connecting, when we are creating an environment that has less mental harm, and then when we're
Hmm.
not. So it's reducing the amount of time that we're not. That's my goal, because we're humans. We make mistakes. But how do we navigate this? How do we reduce mental harm? And how do we help repair when mental harm has been done?
Wow, that's huge, and I love that because I think that mental harm is not always easily detectable. I think some people like suppress it a lot or don't realize what is contributing to that. Like if you have physical harm or like outwardly things that you're tangible, you're like, oh yeah, I'm this is a physically abusive relationship or physically abusive job or whatever. There's like certain abuses that are like you can really quickly identify. Oh, this is not healthy. This is not great. But being able to identify where is the mental abuse coming from or where is the mental harm coming from, or like how like I just feel, I love what you just said, is I just didn't feel something was wrong here and I didn't know how to identify what it was and to bring those languaging in. So if the saloners that were listening or if you're listening to this, Stephanie, how do people start to identify if, like you said, something's not right here, but give some steps onto how do they identify in their own salons, is this a problem that they're having in their own salon?
That actually is the best question. There
Okay.
is an analogy that I do. So there's a program that I teach. It's called Psychologically Safe Salon. I actually changed it to Psychologically Safe Service only so that it included more industries, but it
Totally.
started with Psychologically Safe Salon. And if you want to have me in, I can call it that again. But anyways, there's this aspect that we go through and this activity that's really enlightening, and it's called green light, yellow light, red light. And so it's like, when are we a green light to safety? When are we a yellow light to safety? And when are we a red light to safety? Now, I don't have my notes here with me, but I've done this a few times. So let's go off that. Basically, when we're a green light to safety is when we're feeling calm, grounded, centered within ourselves, when we're feeling that we enjoy the person we're communicating with, when we feel connected to them, when we have their best interests at heart, our own best interests at heart. So we're keeping ourselves in mind, because love includes us, right? We can love others, but love has to include us too. So
Mhm.
generally feeling the emotions that are more towards loving side, that when you're in that, when you're feeling that, that means you are automatically psychologically safe. Like
Mm.
it's an automatic thing. Now, how you're perceived, we can't control that. But that piece, you can be rest assured that if you're truly there, you're good, right?
Yeah.
The yellow piece, this is where I see myself and others. Like, I'm part of this too, right? This is what I'm working on. I'm working to being green as often as possible. But to be real with you, I spend a lot of time in yellow. Yellow is
Mm.
when the famous words of yellow are, I'm busy. Because
Oh man.
yeah, because we are not present. So
Mm.
we don't necessarily connect with others as well as we could, because we're not exactly there with them,
Yeah.
right? And because of that, we miss cues, we miss connection points. That's the biggest piece. Then it's also the, if we're feeling maybe anxious, we're feeling worried, a lot of the yellow is comes from inner voices of self-protection, self-doubt, um, little bits of distrust, feeling uneasy. That is an indicator that you're tipping towards fear. You're towards red light, right? So green light is trust, green light is safety, green light is centered. Yellow light, you're like, I'm on the cusp here, right?
Something's wrong here. Yeah.
Yeah, like my body, I'm sensing something. May be true. It may be a story you're telling yourself. We don't know yet, but this is just signs, right? Red light is when you are, and this is, I want to say red light, we all have a red light moment. The key is to reduce them, right? But the red light
Yeah.
moments are when I'm distrusting. So if I'm having the feeling that, whether justified, whether rational, whether it doesn't matter, but when I am feeling like it's you and me, us and them, right? Disconnection. I'm in red light to safety then. So it's
Mm.
just a key indicator. Now, there
Yeah.
are people that you don't want to connect with. That's fair for your own safety. So I want to say that here. Like, there are times when you trust that. But there are so many times, Kayla, that actually is not the case. There are
Mm.
so many times when we feel distrust, when we feel, so red light looks like the inner talk would be, it would be probably very negative, and even negative, that word is funny, unhelpful will probably be a better word. And it's, they are like this, I can't believe they did that, very distrusting, very,
Almost
I want to say
blamey, like
Trump
almost
like.
like
Like, I keep
yeah.
thinking Trump, like, has somebody made the analogy? That's why I'm searching for words, because I didn't want to say that word. But somebody called
Yeah.
their person, because we did a class and they had to come up with it, and they named their people, and they called her Donelda Trumpet.
Oh my gosh.
And so you can imagine, like, it's just very, it's when we get self-protective and forceful in a strong way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the
Wow.
red light.
I crazy because I mean, I can place times in my life where all three of those things happen and where different people, like I, so if you're starting to identify, like, yeah, I have those moments. I want to know, because like to be able to really connect with the people listening and make sure that we get everybody on the same page with us, what are some good examples of these kinds of things taking place, like in the salon or otherwise, where you see in action, green light, yellow light, red light? What are some examples to get people being able to connect with their own lives as well?
Are you still guessing what your color services are actually costing you? Guessing the cost of your services is eating into your profits. With Salon Scale, you can separate your parts from your labor and charge for every drop of color used. Stop letting your back bar drain your earnings. Click the link in the description to get 10% off of your first year or start your free trial today. Salon Scale. Profit starts with every mix.
So green light would be, as a team salon team member, it would be like supporting each other, giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like if you're seeing somebody who is maybe struggling with a guest, right? Instead of going and judging and being like, that person is not qualified to do the job that they're doing, right? Like how they think they can do balayage, right? I'm just,
Yeah.
that piece right there, that would be more red light.
Okay.
More green light would be, wow, it looks like my coworker's struggling. How can I help them? Do they need my help? That's the first question I would say. Do they need my help? Assess the situation. Do they need the help? And then how can I help? Right? Giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe there's a reason why they're struggling. Instead of
Yeah.
seeing somebody walking out and you think that their color work is horrendous, it's like, again, giving the benefit of the doubt there and saying, I don't know necessarily what they came in, what they were working with. So maybe
Yeah.
that's like best case scenario in this.
Yeah.
Or why don't I get curious and ask, like, what was your intended outcome? Was that your intended outcome? Because Kayla, maybe it was, right? And if it was, great. Maybe we need to work on developing your eye, maybe artistic skills and eye, but maybe that is best case scenario. So it's the getting curious. That's green light. And red light is the opposite. Red light is, the judgment, the going in the back room and talking about it. I remember I messed up in the salon so bad one time. Like, I mean, I've told this story before. I'm not going to, I'm not going to get into it because I can't seem to tell it short, but I really messed up. Right. And I remember standing in front of the staff room door and I was holding the handle and I can hear them talking about me. And one of the staff members said, I would never let her do my client's hair. I'm going to make sure that the front desk knows to never put my clients in with her. Now, I will say that at this point, I was already a Redken artist. I was already teaching in salons. My ego was really like built up on that. I had a lot going on. So that felt horrible in so many ways. It was a crush to the ego, it was everything. It was a crush to the ego to even have made that mistake, right?
Yeah.
I needed support in that moment. I needed friends in that moment. I was ready to quit the industry. And it was a simple mistake, but it ended up being a big mistake, right? Like as in it needed extensions to fix and all that. But luckily, even though the salon owner, definitely looking back through the lens now, could she have done it in a softer way? Sure. But one thing she didn't do was she didn't give up on me. Right. And so she helped me I had to cut mannequin heads for months to kind of like prove my place. But that's a beautiful thing. Out of that, I became an even better artist.
Oh, for
So that's
sure.
like, what an incredible gift.
Yeah.
And I also, what came out of it though, was for a long time, I stopped trusting others. Right? I stopped trusting my coworkers. My inner voice got really sour. My inner voice got us and them. I turned red light. So now I'm potentially creating more mental harm, right? This is how it happens. We stop trusting others. And as soon as distrust happens, red light turns on, right?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
although this was a beautiful scenario, came out like in the end, it all worked out beautifully. For me, it's a testament to if it had been handled in a way in which, the staff members, if we had had a psychologically safe environment, what they would have said was, how can we help? Wow. Stephanie, how are you feeling? Right? That must have felt horrible. How can we help you to get through this? We see the work you do. We see the other work you do. We know you're talented. We don't know what happened here, but we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you made one mistake. Was it a bad one? Yeah, Kayla, it was bad. But we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt here. That's a
Yeah.
psychologically safe salon. How can we support you? I hope that was clear, Kayla.
That was honestly that you did a great job in that because I think it's realizing like, yeah, how is the environment you have at your salon and how do people treat each other? Like, are you cultivating a salon where everybody has each other's back no matter what mistakes you make? Because we are all human and there's no superhuman people. Like even the experts, they can make mistakes too. Now it's all practice and getting better and better, but it's realizing like maybe you made a mistake and having a heart like, man, that could have been me. I could have just easily made the same exact mistake because there's so much that goes into it. You can be an expert in something and still make a mistake. And so reflecting on your salon, if you're listening to this, reflect on your salon and what is that environment? environment. If one of your girls made or one of your service providers made a mistake in your salon, what would the other service providers do? What would they do? How would they support? How would they come alongside them and support them through that mistake? How would you support them through that mistake? And what environment are you cultivating? Because it's inevitable that mistakes are going to be made and things are going to go wrong, or you may have a disrupt, like a guest come in and be really upset and just be like, upset. Maybe your service provider did everything right and the guest is still upset. How do you guys band together to support and create that environment? And is it a green light environment? Is it an environment where there's that benefit of the doubt and that safety, that people feel like it's okay to make mistakes? I want to talk about in my office, one of my favorite things. And when we ever hire new people, they're like, what do you like about working here? And typically my answer is, one of my favorite things to say is, at our company, we have a culture where none of us are afraid to make mistakes, because from the top down, we create that, like, we will grow faster because we will make mistakes quicker, because the more mistakes you make, the more you get to learn from them. But the only way to be able to feel that freedom to make mistakes is if the people around you support you through it and like, okay, let's get through this together, because we have all made really big mistakes before. Whether it's in your job, in your life, it's just inevitable because we're still learning humans and we don't come out of the womb knowing everything we need to know. There's a lot of growing and learning to do. So I love that word picture that you just made of, like, yeah, what it can look like to have a green salon or have a green light salon where people are supporting each other. Now, it's not going to always be that way. Yellow comes on or people get upset or get triggered, things like that. So in now knowing that, Stephanie, what are some steps to start to take to be able to change those things? Like, okay, like however you're listening in on this and you're like, okay, my salon is red, yellow, green, or a little bit of both, or multicolored, whatever it looks like. What are the steps that people can start to take to create that environment that leans more towards a green light in their salon?
Ready to transform your business and improve your salon's profitability? With Lonza's 3-in-1 technology and intermixable shades, your hair color inventory is streamlined with limitless creativity behind the chair. Click the link below to unveil the secret to salon success.
Beautiful question. Here's where we're going to go into emotional intelligence, because you can't have psychological safety without emotional intelligence. And maybe it's innate. Some people are very talented at just having it. But most people, we need some work, on me included. So emotional intelligence basically has 4 different factors. And the first one is self-awareness. And if you want to have a psychologically safe environment, you want ideally every team member to be self-aware, a high level of self-awareness, but you need the majority at the very least. And then the second step after you've built self-awareness, and how that's done is through, educating yourself, to your point of, you've mentioned triggers, identifying what triggers are, and identifying, here's the thing. Some people, there's 2 schools of thought here, that you have to know where your triggers come from. Personally, I think what's more important than where your triggers come from is how you react to them, and then learning how to soften ourselves, how we would rather react. So I work with people to create a plan around that, identifying what their triggers are, and then working on them to create new reactions that will eventually, takes time, but eventually replace the knee-jerk reactions that come with triggers. That's step 1. Step 2 is we have to have self-management. And so self-management, the self-awareness is knowing the trigger. Self-management, again, is that reaction piece, right? So I kind of just talked about step 2. And how am I going to react? What does that look like? How do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? What are my values? What's my main goal? What's my main priority? What are my intentions? And really letting that be what we follow through on, and let that lead us instead of our emotions. Because I like to say, when we have an emotion, we automatically put our beer goggles on and we see through that emotion. And so, like, I have my sad goggles, I have my frustrated goggles, I have my irritated goggles, and then the world just looks like that through them, right? And so I react in that way. Yeah, I call it DUIs, making decisions under the influence of emotion.
Oh
right?
my goodness. Yep.
So
Yep.
that piece. So that's self-management. And then the next thing is awareness of others. Because it's one thing to be self-aware, but it's then also to be other-aware. And what I find is really beautiful about our industry, the beauty industry, is that we tend to be very other-aware. We are, I think that becomes something that either organically happens, or maybe it's intentional, but it has to happen in order to work with guests. If we are not other aware, then I don't think you can last in this industry, Kayla. Like I'm happy to
Yeah.
be proven wrong there. I don't know if it's global, but I have a feeling that you wouldn't last very long.
Yeah.
So there's other awareness. That's the third step. And then the fourth step is other, well, some places it's called other management, but I'm not so sure we can manage others. But it's more about how do we have positive influence with others, right? How do we build relationships? How do we build trust? How do we build connection? And how do we have, because trust equals safety, right? Psychological safety, trust, they're pretty much interchangeable. And so how do we have psychologically safe interactions with others? And those are the four pillars that I work with leadership. I do work with some service providers, like especially those who are, they've got their goals in mind. They are moving for it. They're like, I want to have the most fulfilling life ever. Give
Yeah.
it to me, help me. I want to do this. And I say give it to
Yeah.
me, but they give it to themselves. You know what I mean?
Yes,
But
totally.
mostly I work with salon leaders to do that. And so, yeah, and my biggest thrill is helping them to do it for themselves and then helping them to be able to facilitate that with their team.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so that's huge. I want to know because like I know we get a lot of people who like that's I can hear people already being like, okay, that's great, but then how do I accomplish that? Because I'm like I know that people like I'm the salon owner and I've hired these people in, and you may have somebody that you're thinking about in your salon right now. They're like, man, yeah, they don't have any of those four things, or they have one of those four things, and I think it's like it's a journey. It's a long journey that we go on, and it's hopefully that everybody in the world ends up on. But some people don't. Some people are coachable. Some people aren't. And so I'd love to be able to give some tools that like people being like, well, I'm not their therapist, or I don't have the tools, or I don't have the knowledge that you do. So how does as a salon owner give that support to their staff? Like what questions do they ask? How do they lead their teams and their leadership? Like say, aside from obviously hiring you and bringing you into their salon, but how do they have this conversation to cultivate an environment where that is a pillar, those four pillars is a big pillar and a big part of growing your team, knowing the value and the health that it could bring your team and wanting to drive your team towards being emotionally healthy and mentally healthy. How do you start to cultivate that within your salon?
Are you ready to increase your retention and revenue and convert website traffic to clients? Then you're ready for Maya. Maya creates better business relationships by pairing the right clients with the right beauty professionals. Use promo code HPSA for your first 2 months free. Visit joinmaya.com to get started.
I wish that I had a really simple answer here. Like I think I would be I would be living my best life. I'd just be like, here you go, here's your tab. We're going to exchange money and then I'm going to be rich and you're going to be good. Like there's not a very simple answer to this. But I
Yeah.
will say it has to begin with the leadership. It has to. They have to mirror it. And if you're going to ask me what the biggest change maker is, like I guess I'm going to take your question and kind of twist it a little bit.
Beautiful.
The biggest change maker that they can do that will help everything is self-management. So it's that
Wow.
pillar. When
Okay.
the leader shows up in a confident, grounded, because there's a lot of different confidences, right? There's overconfident, there's underconfident, right? But then there's that sweet spot in between, and I like to call that grounded confidence. And that's that
Mm.
piece where they're so comfortable with their selves, their mission in life, that there is very little that can take them off of that centeredness, push them
Mm.
away from it. If you can get to that place more often, because it's not an all or nothing thing, but if you can get to that place more often, then you're going to do better in self management. And the reason why I bring that up is because most of my coaching clients, that's their lowest score in the test of emotional intelligence is self management. And it was mine too. And so that looks like learning about how we feel when we're feeling off. The biggest emotion that I tend to get from salon owners that they don't want to have anymore is irritation, frustration,
Wow.
right? They're irritated that maybe, there's many stories here, but they're irritated that they do all the work. They're frustrated maybe that their salon, their service providers don't necessarily take it as seriously as they like. There are many different stories here, but if I were to narrow it down, it's irritation, frustration. Okay, great.
Wow.
If that means that you're yellow light to red light when you're in irritation and frustration. So, and it depends on how deep that goes that day, right?
Yes.
If in that moment you can learn to soften, You can learn to unattach. So unhook from the story, whatever story you're telling yourself about that. Soften in your body, like that could look like lower your shoulders, let your belly out. I love the physiological sigh. The physiological sigh is the quickest way to tap into your nervous system. And it is simply this: it's 2 breaths in. I'm going to do it in a second, and a breath out. It's, and when I do it, I like to lower my shoulders. The louder I can be with the exhale, the better. And you can do that a few times in a row to bring yourself back to center.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
recognizing the irritation and frustration again, because I know that those are the two common emotions that come up that make us yellow light, red light. Taking a deep breath, softening our bodies, and then really look at, where's my story now? Because I bet you the story now is softer, right? And if it's not softer, how can I choose a more helpful story? How
Mm.
can I choose the benefit of the doubt here? How can I choose to be more loving in this situation? How can I choose to be more, and if loving is a stretch, how can I choose to be more compassionate in this situation? That right there, Kayla, that will go a very long way, because if you can do that yourself, if a salon owner can, and can really mirror, like really be that, and then they become the mirror for others, and now you're going to have a ripple effect that this is where your salon team is. But if this
Mm.
isn't where a salon owner is, then 9 chances out of 10, unless they have like a leader within the salon that has more influence than them, then their salon team's not there either.
We're Forest, born on the salon floor and built for and by hair and beauty professionals like you. Forest is your marketing, your reporting, your reputation management. You need one easy-to-use system that does it all. Forest, together we grow.
100%. Wow, I love that. And I think it's hard sometimes to realize that like it really does kind of start with you. And at the end of the day, like you said, you can't manage other people. You can't force people to think a certain way or act a certain way or do something, but you can model a behavior that you want to see. You can encompass, be like, you can commit to yourself as a salon owner, whoever's listening to this, you can commit to like, me, Kayla, is going to choose every single day to be more compassionate or to think more or be more aware of myself, more aware of others, and be in more control of myself, because I would choose a word for the year. And this year I chose control, and it's interesting how I chose a word and then I've seen it play out. And so for me, it's like understanding what control has meant, because I have a very weird relationship with what control is. Like, oh, I got to, control this. Like I'm trying to control my surroundings when really I can't control anything but myself. And one thing that my coworker Samantha always says, she's like, you can't control your first thought, but you can control your second. So if thought comes into your brain and it's like, oh shoot, like this person's this person's really mad at me. And it's like, okay, wait, but what are they mad about? Is it more about them? Are they having a stressful day? And be thinking like, when you start to feel that emotion kind of come up and you step back and be like, okay, wait, what is my surroundings? What's playing into this? What could be going on? And asking more questions before you emotionally react. How can you ask a question and get more clarity? I'm like, hey, like, did you mean this? Or because there's always what was said, what was meant, and what was heard. And being able to realize that those things play into every single day with every relationship. I have a son, and even my relationship with my 4.5-year-old son, it's like he says something to me, and I'm like, whoa, like you don't disrespect me like that. I'm like, okay, he hasn't eaten or he's tired, and there's more that goes into it. He's not meaning to attack me like that, but realizing that people are like, we're just kind of functioning through our emotions of the day, or if we're stressed out, or like our busy mindset, or like, man, I don't have enough time in the day, and we kind of get all riled up and kind of self-focused. We don't realize how our actions come across to others. And I think it always starts with you, and being able to cultivate that environment and asking more questions, and you modeling that for the rest of your team and the people and your guests that come in, and you holding that kind of energy for people, it will start to transform. And I think, yeah, like you said, the leadership team, making sure that your leadership team, and maybe it's sitting down and meeting with them and being like, hey guys, I'm like, you listen to this podcast and you have a team meeting with your leadership and you're like, these are the things I'm going to start practicing. These are the things I want to start implementing. I want to try to be this way. Even if you're sitting here right now, or you're listening, you're driving your car to work, wherever you're at right now, and you're like, man, I really don't do those things. I want that, but I don't really know how to get there. And it's okay, because at some point, none of us knew how to get there. And it's about staying proactive and asking more questions and doing more digging and educating and just wanting and realizing that there is a better reality for you in being more mindful of yourself and your actions and the actions of others. And it's just pursuing, realizing that there is a different way. If you're in red light, if you're like, man, I spend most of my life in red light or even in yellow light, it's realizing that you don't have to, and there is a way. And it's a very individual way. We could probably talk, Stephanie, for hours and hours on a way, but at the end of the day, it comes down to you in your life and what how you react and what affects you, because what affects you doesn't affect me. What affects Stephanie doesn't affect, somebody else. And it's realizing that your journey is your individual. And I know sometimes it can feel daunting. I remember when I first kind of started my journey of like, I want to be a better version of myself. And it's like, man, there's so much. And you start diving into it and you realize, wow, man, I got a lot of red. I got a lot of red. I got a lot of yellow. But it's just choosing every day to take small actions. And when the feeling comes in, I love what you said about the deep breath. Take a deep breath in and realizing, okay, how am I feeling right now? And even starting there, how am I feeling? How is this making me feel? And then starting with that, because being more connected to how you feel and identifying those emotions, like even I love the emotional wheel that tells like deeper words, like explain how I'm feeling more than I'm just sad. It's like, I'm feeling devastated. I'm feeling brokenhearted. Whatever those words are that identify, it'll help you start to navigate where it's coming from if you start there. Stephanie, this has been so, so incredible. I love these conversations. I know we can talk more and more about, because there's just so much to uncover, and realizing that there is a better reality for you. There is a safety, there's a mental health safety that you can stand in when you do that kind of work. So Stephanie, what in your experience, what has been like some of the big, as we're kind of closing out here, what has been some of the big nuggets that you've experienced in your work with mental health?
The big nuggets. I think the biggest thing that the reward that I have felt in navigating my own mental health, because of course, recognizing where you are on the scale from green light, yellow light to red light, you automatically have great mental health when you're in green light, right? Is the freedom, Kayla, like the mental and emotional freedom, the freedom from, I used to fear that, I guess, things would last, or that I would stay stuck, or I would fear that things are going to get worse, And when I realized that life is a wave and things come and go, things are constantly in motion, and that I get to breathe into things, I get to allow things, and in that allowing, that's where the freedom is. That's where the beauty is. You had said the word that you chose was control. My word is neutrality.
Wow.
And that's a newer word. It's not the word I started off with, but it's the word that came to me a little, later on. And it's what I've been, my intention every day. And in neutrality, there's a beautiful peace that comes with that. And so I say this because it's not just my experience. This has been the experience as well of the people that I've worked with and that my coaches have done for me. And I'm sure that there's some part of this. Well, I don't want to assume, but I feel like there's some part of this you resonate with too. Like there's an emotional and mental freedom that comes from this work. And that when you're free, you're healthy. You're healthy.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question, but that would be
it. Absolutely
what
did.
came to mind.
I love it. And that was perfect, because I think, in that freedom, you can have better relationships, you can have more success, you can just go more places and find more joy in the places that you're going, because you have that freedom to operate and to just be present. And I think one of the most valuable things that I learned is to be present in the moment and to be focused on who's in front of me and conversations I'm having. And the freedom that has come with that just in my own life has been surreal. And just to put it, it's hard to explain how magical it can feel to be present and have that freedom within. And I know the journey can feel like a really big mountain, and you can feel like, man, I don't know, let's go a lot. But you'll never get somewhere unless you just start. So start with day one, start with today. What choices can you make? How can you be more aware of yourself? How can you control yourself? Be more aware of others, and not control others, but just be more mindful of what's going on in their life and why are they acting this way, or why are they doing those things? Having that awareness of others can be very valuable. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for hanging out with me today. It was a huge blast. We'll hopefully have to do it again sometime. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time on the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Kayla.
You've been listening to the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and check us out at profitablesalon.com for more episodes, content, and to help you turn your salon into the business you've always dreamt of.